Yeah, so pretty much the first thing I try and do before I start climbing is warm up the shoulders. This is a big part of climbing, so obviously you want to make sure that you're not injuring yourself by yeah, just being like too cool or not warming up the muscles at all. So what we're doing right here is a band warm up, just getting the rotator cuff stuff warmed up and just all parts of the shoulder, get that scap warm. Doing lots of resisted pulling to kind of simulate what kind of movements you might do on a wall. So yeah, lots of external rotation and internal rotation, and also just pulling down as well as pulling up like you're reaching for a hold. So yeah, lots of just dynamic movements to make sure that we're ready to climb on the wall before we actually get on the wall.
This is one I made up during baseball, so.
This is not one that I do, but I did like it, so might incorporate that one.
So this is a warm-up climb for myself. Just an easy V5, V6.
Yeah, totally.
This is like a V0, pretty easy warm-up. I was just trying to get warm, working on some things like foot matches, trying to keep my hips a little bit more to the wall, which I'm still working on, but after I'm done doing this climb, Caroline will climb it, and then I'll try to reset and do a little bit better on that one.
Yeah, overall, pretty decent warm-up. Looked pretty smooth. He's done this one before, so it's always good to warm up on ones you've done before.
No, this is my first one. So Caroline's going to show us how to do the correct one. The first thing I noticed that she did was, like, I did a reverse cross in the first part, which you'll see I changed pretty quickly. But then she just scales the wall, like, super easy.
Yeah, the reason you don't necessarily want to do, like, what he did with his feet at the beginning was because it brings your hips super far away from the wall, and it's just really hard to unwind from that. But really what we're doing here is warming up the hands, focusing on footwork and technique.
And you'll see I'll try to do a in front one there to change.
And you can see how much closer the hips were after that from the first one.
Yeah. I think most of the problems I have is finding what holds. I'm not like preparing the climb before I get up there, so I'm like trying to figure it out as I go, which is not, I don't think, the way you should do it. But
yeah, you should always try and look at the climb before, just so you kind of have an idea of what the movement might look like, and then be flexible up on the wall. Yeah, so I would say the first thing that I've noticed when you're doing this is you like to keep your hips split. When I say hips in, you want to do it like what you're doing is hips have to be square in, right? And so you're climbing like this. Feet out, knees out, because you don't want to shift it. So that just means it looks like clumpy. And so like on like 0, 1, 2, like you can get away with that because it's generally like straight up. But the problem is going to be once you start doing moves where it requires you to shift your body weight this way, or like doing a reaching move out this way, you can't necessarily have your hips in, right? Because you're probably going to bar the wall or something like that. So being able to shift through your feet and get hips in doesn't just mean the front of your hips. It's like your whole, you can get your hip onto the wall, and then you can reach up here instead of trying to go like this, and then your chest goes way off the wall.
So it's kind of like the first hold, though. It's like
yeah, so exactly. So when you do the first hold, it's good. So your hips are still in the wall, but it's versus that, or yeah, exactly. So you can sometimes you have to change where your hips are to accommodate the hold.
Okay.
So like this one's like kind of harder because it is so one way. But it's not coming just here. That's what I said. So this way, you're like opening scales. It's now. And then if you get your foot up again, get your left foot high and just or yep, that's even better. Yeah.
Just know that that sequence is kept. Feel like the streets is dead. I get my heart rate out of dog. So that's what I let my pops because if he didn't fail, he could have corrected.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to explain here is mainly, if you look at his foot, his right foot, it's like the middle of his foot is on the hold, and that makes it really hard to shift through the hold because you have to pick up your foot and move it, and that is not ever what you want to do in climbing because then that eliminates a point of contact with a hold, and you're definitely more likely to fall. So what I'm explaining is kind of putting more weight through your toes. It seems weird because it seems like less contact with the hold, but it's actually going to help you because you're able to shift more on it, and you're almost never going to have to actually pick up your foot to readjust.
So we're trying a new climb here. I'm trying to figure out how to keep my hips towards the wall as best I can, but I get stuck on the next hold, which I think I do a good job here of like shifting weight or like practicing shifting weight over.
Yeah, really good.
But I think I get a little confused of hips towards the wall versus finding the next hold, and I think you come in here to kind of explain that I need to shift my weight away from the wall just a bit to get my right foot up instead of keeping my hips way left like that.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I kind of corrected myself on in this is the difference between like hips into the wall in like a good way versus like a hindering way, because sometimes you can block your own foot by trying to keep your hips in. And so sometimes you need to push the hips away to enable yourself to like find a better foot. And that's not a bad thing because if they're good holds, then you can kind of hang on them and just let the hold do the work of keeping you up. So this position that he's in isn't necessarily optimal because it's not necessarily like the way the hold's facing. And it's hard to move your left foot in the way he was.
Yeah, I think
he's so square.
You swung right to get your other foot up there, and I tried to weirdly get my foot up there when I was swinging left.
Yeah. So a big part is also like knowing where the holds are, and like positioning your body so that you're optimizing like the hold like angle. Because if you're not holding and like putting your weight into the hold the right way, then it's never gonna feel good to hold. And so we kind of made that correction here a little bit. And I think one thing that I also needed to start keeping in mind was just like height difference in climbing. Like he's never going to climb the same as me because he's, almost a foot taller than me. So, I needed to start keeping that in mind, especially on this climb because there was holds that he could reach that I couldn't reach. And one of my friends made a good point later that, it's not a bad thing to use your height to reach holds that I can't reach.
And the other thing that you were talking about was your right foot there. That was on the hold. It was like a hand hold, but I was touching the top of it, and I wasn't able to rotate my foot over.
Yeah, because you're using your whole foot instead of being able to rotate through the toes.
Yep. This hold was terrifying for me because if anyone doesn't know, I'm terrified of heights, which means I'm terrified of falling.
Yeah, and what I'm explaining here is, as you can see, my hips right there are away from the wall, which seems counterintuitive to what I was telling him. But if you can see, what I'm trying to say is I'm shifting them up towards where I want my hand to go. And so you can kind of use your hips to generate the momentum you need. So you're not really pulling, you're using your legs and your hips to just angle yourself towards the hold. But that's a hard concept to get at the beginning.
I think if I remember, this one was a lot better climb. It was more, maybe not fast, but I think better technique getting
definitely
up the wall.
smoother.
And I'm hanging on my feet, which is better.
Yeah, you can see you're using your toes. You're still kind of lifting them up and readjusting.
Yeah.
You can see you're not really using, but it's still better. Still put definitely better placement because you could shift more through, which is good. Yeah, so you have kind of like what you were telling me about disc golf is like you have the like idea of it, but it just looks clunky right now. so you just focusing on like, okay, how do I make this smooth now? Like what, like feel natural? Like how do I just integrate this into my climbing to make it feel natural?
Like looking at this right there, I should just be able to grab. I don't understand why it's so difficult in my head to grab there.
Yeah.
But I knew if I let go and reached up for with my left, like there's a 5% chance I fall. I think that's in my head a lot, which I need to get over.
Yeah, and what I'm explaining here is what he was doing, and what I was kind of trying to get him away from doing. I think you ended up doing it anyways, and it worked. It was fine because it's such a good hold at the end. But what I was explaining is the reason I was doing it this way with left hip into the wall is because once you grab the hold, like you're not gonna what we say barn door, which means your leg's not gonna pull you off the wall. Whereas what you were doing is when you have right foot on, left foot off, and you reach for the hold, your legs just start swinging out to the left, and there's a chance that it just pulls you off the wall.
Yeah. I think I'm trying to learn how to keep my weight using my feet on different sides. So like flagging, stuff like that to like make sure I don't swing outside. That was just her showing off.
Yeah.
She got bored of teaching me on a V-1.
No, it's like a V0, V1. So this is already looking a little bit smoother. Like, as you know the climb, you know what you're supposed to do. And you can see his hips are positioned the, like, right way into the hold, which is good.
I feel like I always have to think, like, so much. And my endurance isn't great with my arms. So I wear out quickly because I'm thinking too much about where I'm going versus knowing. Like, just lift, just reach. Just no. I don't understand why this is so difficult for me. It's like it's right there.
Yeah.
I think I just said I'm terrified of falling right there.
And
she said, well, grow up.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, 98% of climbing is falling. I fall 98% of the time and send 2% of the time when I'm actually working on a hard climb. So I mean that's just something with climbing.
I think we're still doing the same thing of talking about pulling like from my arms instead of using my feet to get up to that last hold. Because I'm trying to like pull myself up with that top right hand.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this is something that a lot of guy climbers start falling into, especially when they're starting out, because they have a pretty strong base strength.
Except for me. My strength to mass ratio.
Your strength to mass ratio, as one person pointed out, is not as good.
It's not ideal.
It's not ideal, but, you know, we're working on that.
The strength part.
Yeah. But one way to compensate that is just use your feet. I mean, your legs are your strongest.
Well, that's another problem
in your body.
That's another problem for me.
You know, but you're definitely stronger than your arms. So if you don't learn how to use your feet and your legs to actually push you up the wall, instead of using your arms to pull yourself up the wall, then these warm-up climbs are never going to feel easy because it feels like you're pulling yourself the whole time.
And this is when your friend was talking about, like, well, his words exactly were, don't climb like a small person.
Yeah.
Like, climb like a big person.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was mentioning earlier.
Yeah.
That's something I forget because I am a small climber. So I can fit into small boxes pretty well, but you never want to, like, force a different climber to climb the way you climb when it literally wouldn't work for you.
Yeah.
So.
I think we're sending it here. I think I might get this.
Yeah.
I forget if this is the one that I got or not.
I can't remember either.
What is your friend's name again?
Thomas.
Thomas. This one was for Thomas.
Yeah. If you make it.
Yeah, that's true. If I miss it, it's for Caroline.
Yeah. What? That's mean.
It's just so much thinking. We've done it 10 times.
Yep. We've done it a lot of times. But
see, just I need to be, like, putting my foot up. There's another hole right there.
And that was good because I think this is the one you made.
Yeah.
Yeah, like.
But there's the
barn door. So there's that barn door I was talking about. But even still, if you look back to the previous videos, your feet were down 2 holds lower.
Yeah.
You got your feet up more. You trusted your feet more. You weren't just, like, using the whole, like all of your foot. You were using your toes well.
Yeah.
And you really just pushed up with your legs. I mean, you still pulled with your arm, but like that's what climbing is. It's always going to be some pulling, but you pushed with your feet a lot better.
The good news is here, we've got some really good footage coming up of actual climbers, not me. This is how I felt about the day.
You did pretty well, though. I think that was pretty solid learning.